I never thought I'd be writing this, but life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I'm 32, and until recently, I was happily married to my wife of 3 years. We met at a coffee shop near our office buildings 5 years before we got married. For 2 years, we were just good friends who'd grab lunch together and talk about our lives. Eventually, we both realized there was something more between us. Our relationship was great. We dated for 3 years before getting married. She was 27 when we tied the knot, and everything seemed perfect. We had similar interests, supported each other's careers, and had what I thought was a solid plan for our future together. About 4 months ago, my cousin moved in with us temporarily. He's 26, just lost his job at a tech startup, and instead of jumping into another job right away, he wanted to find himself. My uncle, his dad, called and asked if we could let him stay with us for a few weeks while he figured things out. My cousin had always been the family's wild card, dropping out of college twice before finally graduating, changing jobs every year, and generally living life on his own terms. I wasn't thrilled about having him stay with us, but my wife said she was fine with it, and I couldn't say no to my uncle. He's been there for me since I was a kid, especially after my mom passed away. When my cousin moved in, I set some ground rules: no parties, no loud music late at night, and he had to be respectful of our space. The first couple of weeks were surprisingly good. He'd stay out late exploring the city, but was quiet when he came home. He even cooked dinner for us a few times, which was unexpected since he'd never shown any interest in cooking before. Then came the weekend that changed everything. I had a business trip to Chicago that I couldn't reschedule. My wife was supposed to come with me, but she got food poisoning the night before. My cousin offered to look after her while I was gone, saying he'd make her some soup and make sure she had everything she needed. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. After that weekend, things started changing. My cousin, who used to be out all day, suddenly started spending more time at home. I'd come back from work to find them watching TV together or having coffee in the kitchen. Once, I came home early and found them coming back to the apartment together. They said they'd bumped into each other outside, but something felt off. I started noticing other small things too. My wife would take random days off work without telling me, which wasn't like her. She'd be texting more often, but hide her phone screen when I walked by. I tried to push these thoughts away. I trusted my wife completely, and my cousin, despite his flaws, was family. After about a month of these nagging doubts, I decided to ask my cousin to move out. I tried to be nice about it, suggesting that maybe it was time for him to start looking for his own place. He took it well and moved out within a week. My wife didn't say anything during this conversation, which was strange because she usually had an opinion about everything. I thought things would get better after he left, and for a while, they did. Then we found out my wife was pregnant. 2 months pregnant, to be exact. The timing matched perfectly with when my cousin was living with us. Here's the thing. We'd always been careful about protection because my wife wanted to wait until she was 30 to have kids. It was something we discussed extensively, and even though I wanted children sooner, I respected her choice. The revelation hit me hard. I spent weeks trying to convince myself I was being paranoid, that I was a terrible person for even having these thoughts, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. One evening during dinner, I gathered my courage and asked her directly if the baby was mine. Her reaction was explosive. She started yelling, calling me horrible names, and asking how I could even think such a thing. When I explained my concerns about the timing and the strange behavior I'd noticed while my cousin was living with us, she got even angrier. After she calmed down a bit, I told her I needed a paternity test after the baby was born. I explained that I didn't want to live with these doubts, and if I was wrong, I'd spend the rest of my life making it up to her. Instead of understanding, she completely lost it. She screamed about trust and how I was trying to humiliate her. I stayed calm but told her this wasn't negotiable. Either she agreed to the test, or our marriage was over. She went quiet after that. We spent the next week barely speaking to each other. She'd come home late and go straight to bed. I tried to talk to her several times, but she'd just walk away or start crying. Then one Thursday, she didn't come home at all. I called her office the next morning and found out she'd taken 2 personal days off. None of her friends knew where she was. I was worried sick and was about to call the police when she finally called me. She sounded irritated, like I was overreacting, and said she needed time to fix things. She hung up before I could ask what that meant. The next morning, she came home acting strangely happy. What she told me next made me feel like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. She said she'd fixed our problem by getting an abortion. She looked me straight in the eyes and said now I had no reason to doubt her anymore, and we could have a fresh start. I left the apartment immediately. I couldn't even look at her. I called my lawyer from the lobby and told her to start divorce proceedings. Then I called my cousin. He was in Seattle now, and when I confronted him about sleeping with my wife, he didn't deny it. He just apologized. I checked into a hotel and spent the night planning my next steps. The next morning, I went to my lawyer's office and explained everything. The affair, the abortion, all of it. My lawyer said that while it's usually hard to get a divorce without alimony, given that my wife had a good job and was clearly at fault, we had a chance. I went home while my wife was at work, packed her things in suitcases, left them in the hallway, and had the locks changed. I knew it might seem harsh, but I couldn't stand the thought of seeing her. I grabbed some of my stuff and went back to the hotel. My wife started calling and texting nonstop when she found out what I'd done. I ignored everything. My cousin texted me saying she contacted him after finding her things in the hallway, and he told her that I knew everything. Then I did something that might have been petty, but I couldn't help myself. My wife's family is very traditional. They've been pressuring us to have kids since our wedding day, and I'd always supported my wife's decision to wait, never telling them it was entirely her choice. I called my mother-in-law and told her everything. The fallout was bigger than I expected. My mother-in-law was completely shocked. At first, she didn't believe me, but I told her that my cousin had already admitted to the affair, and I had proof of the pregnancy from the doctor's visit. I suggested she ask her daughter about the abortion. My wife called me immediately after her mother contacted her. She was furious, saying I had no right to tell her parents and that I was deliberately trying to ruin her life. She complained that she had nowhere to go since I'd locked her out. I told her coldly that she could stay at any hotel she wanted and that from now on, all communication would be through our lawyers. Then she dropped a bomb. Her parents had cut her off completely, not just emotionally, but financially too. Apparently, they had a substantial inheritance waiting for her, but after learning what she'd done, they decided she wouldn't see a cent of it. I hadn't expected them to go that far, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. The divorce process was messy. She refused to cooperate at first, demanding alimony and making threats about taking everything I had. But I had solid evidence: the pregnancy test, doctor's reports, and my cousin was willing to testify about their affair. After several heated meetings with lawyers, she finally realized she wasn't going to win. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. She didn't get any alimony, thanks to her high-paying job and the evidence of her infidelity. We split our joint assets fairly, and I kept my apartment since I'd owned it before our marriage. I thought that was the end of it, but life had one more surprise for me. Last week, my uncle called to tell me that my cousin and my ex-wife are dating openly now. He'd found a job in our city and moved back. My uncle made it clear he wants nothing to do with either of them anymore, which at least made me feel like someone was on my side. Looking back, I wasted 5 years of my life with someone I thought I knew completely. I put my dreams of having a family on hold for her, only to have her throw everything away for a fling with my cousin. The betrayal still hurts, but I'm starting to see it as a blessing in disguise. Better to find out who she really was now than years down the road with kids involved. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know one thing: I'm done with both of them. My uncle suggested I start dating again, but I'm not ready for that yet. For now, I'm focusing on myself, my work, and healing from this whole mess. Maybe someday I'll find someone who actually values trust and commitment as much as I do. But until then, I'm okay being on my own. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far by telling her parents, but then I remember how coldly she told me about the abortion, like it was nothing more than canceling dinner plans. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. As for my cousin, well, they deserve each other. I just hope I never have to see either of them again. The whole experience taught me that you never really know someone completely, no matter how long you've been together. But it also showed me that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived something I never imagined would happen to me, and somehow, I'm still standing. That's something, at least. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.